just the thought of I failed myself, because when you dream up something so big and you're executing it and you're in it and it's so good, and then it's like, whoa. But I'm like, Lord, you want me to do what? You wanted me to walk in this big faith thing, and you want me to close the door, and we ain't doing what? Like, that's how I felt. I said, God is doing something big. And he told me these words, and he said, out for brunch. And I'm like, out for brunch?
Yeah.
What does out for brunch mean?
I want to know what it means too. Nycia, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited. It's funny, and I think everyone's going to find this funny. We met at a coffee shop a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Like, very happenstance. I needed someone was going to come on the show. They backed out, and I just happened to stumble in the coffee shop, and a mutual friend of ours was there, and she's like, oh my gosh, Bree, we were just talking about the show. You have to meet this amazing woman. And then I did some research. After I invited you, I just invited you on the spot. But then I did my research, and you are the real deal, girl. You're doing your thing.
Oh, I guess.
So introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yes, I'm Nycia Emerson. I'm an interior designer, and I also am the founder of She Inspires, which is my heart, my baby, my passion.
Yeah.
Yes.
She Inspires. Tell me that.
She Inspires. Girlfriends, brunch, and Jesus.
Oh,
Everybody loves a good brunch, right? I know I do. And I love being with other women and other entrepreneurs, like-minded women of faith, even women that are striving to be better for Jesus, or haven't even experienced the love of Jesus, and just want and crave that. And so that's what She Inspires offers. We bring women together over a beautiful brunch, beautiful tablescapes. We talk about Jesus. We have coffee. We have mocktails or mimosas. And we just enjoy our time together. And I've been doing that for the last 6 years.
Wow. And is this every month, every week? How does that work?
Once a year or twice a year.
Oh,
we
okay.
normally do little pop-ups, and then we'll have our annual November brunch. It's like Friendsgiving type thing. And we're going to start retreating as well.
Okay.
So we travel.
Wow. So there's more. So look at me. I'm like, every week, every month? How long? When can I come? Let me do it.
I know. I feel like we all need it every month, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got some fun things in the works for She Inspires.
Oh my goodness. So how did that come about? How did that vision just get planted?
Actually, I thought it was supposed to be a blog in 2011. God woke me up. I have I say divine appointments with Jesus in the middle of the night, where he just wakes you up and you're like, I'm sleepy, Lord, but I want to hear what you got to say.
Yeah.
She Inspires was one of those things where he woke me up in the middle of the night. I got excited, and I'm like, waking my husband up. He was like, what is it?
What
I'm
do you
like,
want?
what is this She Inspires? God just spoke She Inspires to me. He's like, can we talk about it in the morning?
In the morning?
Yeah. And I got excited about it. I thought it was just a blog, because at the time I was a wedding planner.
Oh, wow.
I was Nycia Emerson, the wedding planner. That's what everybody knew me as. And I thought it was a blog about events and design and styling and beautiful things. And in reality, I felt in my spirit that it was more.
Yeah.
And God spoke to me in 2014 as I was sitting in church.
Yeah.
And he said, you need to host a conference at your church. And I'm like, I'm not a conference girl. Like, I do weddings, right? I'm like, you want me to do what? But I was obedient to the call. A little bit kind of, doubtful about it, because I'm like, what is this? And I started it. I had a conference, and it was amazing. And then I craved more and more. And then that's how the brunches, it grew into the brunches after that. But it's my baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was reading just some of the testimonies from some of the participants. Yeah. And you all walk through some stuff. Like, it's not just brunch and, oh my gosh, look at me. Like, sometimes those conversations get really real.
It does. And I feel like sometimes, like, when we're sitting in a group amongst other people, amongst other people that are going through some of the same things that you think you're going through alone, I feel like that's where She Inspires comes in. We're sitting amongst food, which brings the most amazing conversations. Yeah. I love to make it beautiful. I think that's a big thing. It's always nice to see your name tag, on a placeholder on a table. You feel special.
I mean, it makes me feel special.
Yeah, and then you feel like you can sit there and you belong there, because we always want to feel like we belong to something as women. And so sitting at the table always brings about the most amazing, transparent conversations. And so having speakers that can talk about things that they're going through and it be relatable to someone that's attending, that's what She Inspires is about. Just being able to sit together and
Yeah.
love on one another, even if you don't know each other.
Yeah.
Just to be able to love on one another. You never know how that's going to change someone's life or shift their perspective. And so that's what we do with She Inspires. Just be able to sit amongst women that you may not even know and become best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that. Women have not always been the safest space for me, but in this season of my life, the last maybe 5 years, there's been space or redemption for that, where I have a group of friends, there's 7 of them, I can call them or text them at any time with anything, and we just kind of support one another.
Yes.
And there's a beauty in that I didn't think I would ever be able to experience in this life.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. You'll be surprised how many women are like, I don't have friends. Like,
Yeah.
I don't do women, I guess I
Yes.
should say. Like it's one of those things where they kind of pull back.
Yeah.
And then to be able to sit in a space amongst women that
Yeah.
are like-minded and have the same issues and concerns, and also that pull back too, and then be able to sit together and feel comfortable and say, oh my gosh, I could go to coffee with this person outside of She Inspires.
Yeah.
Or I could go sit next to her at church, because I haven't been to church in a long time, right? And so that's kind of, it's that thing of, okay, I don't have friends, but I need to make friends, or I feel like I need a tribe, but I've never known how to trust. It's a trust thing. And so that's kind of where we are with She Inspires, just being able to sit amongst women that you don't know and hopefully become a friend.
Yeah.
Like, and build a tribe amongst that friendship. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. You also were able to create like this prayer book and guide that went along with it. She Inspires.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
That actually started, Bree, from me starting a She Inspires private group on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
And every Wednesday I would post a prayer, and I still do. It's like my thing. If I can't get on there and post a prayer, I'm like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing today. But every Wednesday I would post a prayer.
Yeah.
And that turned into a She Prays book. Like, I felt the need and the nudge to just kind of go a little deeper. And so I ended up writing She Prays and making it into a journal, so women can kind of start their own prayer journey.
Okay.
I think prayer is like that one thing that kind of, it's the center of it all. Like, if we can pray over everything, then we know we can ask God to guide us in everything that we do in our life. And that's where the She Prays book.
When you say prayer, explain that to me, because I think sometimes, especially some of my guests who aren't of faith, when they hear prayer, they think of either something that's very bold and very, over the top, or they think of something that's very formal. But you talk about, and other people that I've talked to talk about, how it's just this conversation of your heart with your higher power.
Yes.
About whatever it is, whatever it may be.
Yes.
Explain it to me.
I describe it as sitting, if you're sitting, like me and you sitting together right now.
Yeah.
Or sitting at a coffee shop across the table with another friend, or someone you're meeting with for coffee. That's how Jesus wants us to talk to him.
Yeah.
And so I'm always like, it doesn't have to be the fancy thing of praying. Like, you pray from your heart. What are you dealing with that day? You may have woke up in the morning and you're just not feeling it. You're not feeling going to work. You're not feeling doing, if you have kids, not feeling being a mom or a wife, whatever it may be. And just being able to pray and be transparent about like literally talking to God in a unique way for yourself. I feel like it doesn't have to be so structured, and I think that's where people mess up at. They feel like prayer has to be so structured. And when I say structured, I mean, I need to pray, Heavenly Father, No, you can pray and be transparent. Lord, I need you right now.
Yeah.
Lord, I feel awful in my mental, in my spiritual. I need you to give me the strength to get through this moment, through this day. Just as simple as that, and he hears us.
Yeah.
I know people talk about praying in the prayer closet, in your closet. I do go to my closet sometimes.
Yeah.
But it don't have to be in the closet.
Yeah.
It could be you walking around your house, or just driving in your car and feeling like you just need that extra, and God's like, okay, I'm right here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always here. Just bring it to me.
Yeah.
And so it could be that simple. And I have gotten the question of, how do I pray?
Yeah.
And again, I always say, it doesn't have to be structured. It's just opening your mouth to pray and ask God for whatever it is that you're dealing with. It be so simple. Something I've been praying about lately is my son going off to college.
Oh my goodness.
And I find myself
Wait a
praying
minute.
that all the time.
You
I'm like,
do not have a son going to college.
yeah, and it makes me cringe just to think about it. But
You don't look like you have any son
thank
going.
Yes. And he plays basketball, and he's, we're in the middle of, okay, what scholarship, so last week, as a matter of fact, I was led to send my teenager a prayer, because I'm like, we have not because we ask not.
Yeah.
And so I think about that too with prayer. So I'm like, have you prayed over where God wants you to be? Have you asked God, you want to go to this college? Have you asked? He can open the door to that, and so I was led to send him a prayer through text message. And so the other day I was like, did you pray that prayer? He said, yeah, Mom, I prayed it.
Oh, wow.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
But just being able to pray, whatever, especially when anxiety sets in or you get anxious about something. I don't know. For me, it's just that calming, like, okay, my Father got my back.
Yeah.
And that's all I need really in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I describe prayer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's gotten you through some stuff. I mean, I was reading, and we know some mutual people. You've come through some stuff, and looking at you, you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know.
Yeah. And I wear pink to show that I come through it.
I've come through it.
I'm telling you, put on the bold color because I know, like, favor.
Yeah.
I feel like for instance, the studio that I opened up, and then COVID hit, and having to close my studio was like the worst thing. I'm like, what just happened, right? And not really understanding the depths of what had happened when I had to close those doors, but God gave me specific instructions that it was time to close it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, Lord, you want me to do what? You wanted me to walk in this big faith thing, and you want me to close the door, and we ain't doing what? Like, that's how I felt, and I felt that let down, I felt like I failed. And I felt defeated in the process. But in reality, God reminded me, it wasn't yours to begin with, girl. Like, let go of that ego. Like, sometimes God has to give us an ego check. Like, literally. Let go of that ego and know that it was my doing from the jump.
Yeah.
So however it looks after those doors were closed, you did what I asked you to do.
Yeah.
And so me having to kind of get out of my feelings, because I was in my feelings, girl,
Let's talk about that, because you're a creative, right? And I mean, that's what I love about you. I've seen some of your work with, you doing design and stuff like that. So tell me those feelings. Put some words to them. Tell me how it was having to close your studio.
Failure was one of those things for me. Like, just the thought of I failed myself, because when you dream up something so big and you're executing it and you're in it and it's so good, and then it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So the idea of failure set in. But God reminded me that it wasn't mine to begin with. And so the idea of me thinking I failed is like then calling him a failure too, right? Because it wasn't mine from the start. It was a faith walk to begin with. And in that faith walk, seeing all of the ways that God was showing up and the favor that I had in it, knowing that it wasn't my doing, it was his. So that was one of them. And just feeling defeated altogether. But of course, we were in the middle of a pandemic, which I hate talking about.
Everybody felt defeated.
Everybody felt defeated.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, that ego check. Right? Like, Nycia, it wasn't yours to begin with. Get over it, girl. Let's get back, get your mind right. And because it was hard, just like it was hard for a lot of other business owners as well. But when you're in something and it's so good and you find yourself like, I had a pink sofa in the studio. I called it my prayer couch, girl. It's my prayer couch. I still have it. It's in my office for the next studio.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I won't be able to pray over people anymore. Like, little things that I got to experience in it.
Yeah.
Even the clients that came in and rented the space, and all the great conversations with other women, and having days where we could sit and work together. Like, those things were going to be ending. And that's what really bothered me the most, is knowing that all that good was going to go away.
Yeah.
And God clearly reminded me that, who said it's the end? You know, it's the end for that location. And so I didn't talk about it too much, because for some reason I didn't have the words. Like, I'm like, okay, I closed the studio, I'm being obedient. What do I tell people? you know? And so the thought of, what do I say about this wonderful thing that I was just in and that people got to experience with me? How do I tell them it doesn't exist anymore? And I remember, and it's still, I think, listed now, but on our Instagram page, I put, this location's closed. So not to say that everything's ending, it's just there's no longer this location, right? So then opening it up to know that there is something better to come. But the feeling of feeling defeated was one of those big feelings that I'm like, oh my gosh, I think sometimes I didn't experience some of the feelings that I felt during that time. And I could actually put a word with those feelings to say, I can relate to someone else that feels this way in a season of their life where they feel like they failed, or they feel defeated, or they feel a little depressed, you know? And so all of those feelings wrapped up in it, from not just a closed business, but also a pandemic that you have no control over. But to know that God is still in control.
Wow. In season 1, we talked a little bit about that feeling of failure through the lens of imposter syndrome. But all of us feel failure at some point. And the reason I feel like failure is the hardest thing to overcome and brings about those feelings of depression and anxiety to not fail again, or to not let this be the end all be all, is that it's all internal. When you're going through defeat or what you perceive to be failure in that moment, a lot of that is internal, and it's hard to put words to that because it's a complicated emotion.
Oh, totally.
Because it's also, what does it say about me? You know? And I don't know if that's how you felt at all. But.
Well, as a leader, because I'm like, I'm a leader. I'm leading other women to be in tune to their emotions, to be in tune to how they can lean into God, to be in tune to their faith and walking in big faith. So how can I have these feelings when I'm encouraging other women to really try to get a grasp of those feelings and to learn how to maneuver in those feelings, right? In a godly way. So who am I to have these feelings when I have other people that are looking for me to encourage them in their feelings, right? So then it became, okay, pick yourself up because someone needs you. I think sometimes we go through things in our life and we feel like we're the only one going through it, but we also go through it and we can't pick ourselves up when I'm like, somebody needs me tomorrow. So Nycia needs to pull it together for that person that needs that prayer tomorrow, or that person that feels defeated tomorrow that needs me to help them out of that defeat. So me being able to, in return, give that to someone else helped pull myself out during that time, because I couldn't stop. As a leader, I couldn't quit. I got women that need me. They need the God in me to be that light for them. So Nycia needs to pick herself up and be that light for someone else. And that's where I kind of found myself. I found myself doing that continually, and in return, it helped me in my own feelings. Because I'm like, I'm encouraging this woman to do this, and I need the encouragement myself. By me encouraging that woman tomorrow, that helps me to be encouraged by what I'm saying to them.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Did you give yourself a chance to feel what you were feeling in that process?
I feel like, and that's the crazy part, I feel like so many people felt so many things during that time, 2020, 2021, like the feeling of, okay, like, we don't know what we're doing tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
But if I'm stuck in this house one more time,
one more day.
And when you're a creative, and when you're an extrovert, because I'm an extrovert, I feel like, but I feel like during that time, it taught me to tap into my introverted Nycia a little bit too. So then to be able to self-reflect in a different way. Does that make sense? To be able to be an extrovert and be extroverted all the time, because that is me, but to be able to finally tap into that introverted Nycia that I didn't know existed, I'm like, oh, I kind of like this girl. I could go watch a movie by myself now. And Brie, I have done that. But before, I'm like, go to the movies by myself. I need my girlfriends with me. But now I'm okay with going to a movie by myself. I'm okay with sitting and having sushi by myself. But before that, I never had given myself a chance to tap into that self-awareness of being alone. So though isolation was horrible, it taught me to tap into a different side of who I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was so hard before, to tap into that different part of you?
I think sometimes as leaders, and I think other leaders can probably relate to me, someone always needs you, right?
Yeah.
You're always needed. And if you know that's a part of your calling, sometimes you don't actually allow yourself to have the stillness and the alone time because someone always needs you.
Yeah.
And for me, whether it's my kids or my husband or friends or women I don't even know or women at church, whatever it may be, I always had myself open up to being there for someone.
To inspire.
Yes. And during that time, I was just, I got an opportunity to say, okay, I actually enjoy some quiet time, and now, of course, getting outside is what they call it, right?
Is it?
Now getting outside and being outside, I'm like, there's times where I'm like, okay, I need to have my quiet time more. And not just that quiet time in the morning reading my Bible to start my day, but I'm talking that quiet time sometimes where it's me sitting at a coffee shop by myself, A lot of times coffee shop for me was sitting with someone else.
Yeah.
And now I can sit at the coffee shop by myself and appreciate it.
Yeah.
Whereas before, that didn't exist in my life.
Wow.
So it's something new, It's new for me and I kind of like it.
Yeah. Speaking of something new, you are planning on adding on to your collection of books, to writing a new one. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh. And speaking of the studio, this book came to me when I was in my studio in 2019. This was before the whole 2020 thing hit. I was sweeping in my studio one morning, getting ready for a photographer to come in. And as I'm sweeping, God clearly brought words to me, and I got excited, and I literally, girl, and I mentioned it in my book, I dropped the broom and I called my husband and I said, boy, I said, God is doing something big. And he told me these words and he said, out for brunch. And I'm like, out for brunch?
Yeah.
What does out for brunch mean?
I want to know the beast too.
Well, She Inspires is all about brunching, right?
Okay.
But I didn't put the two and two together for a while.
Yeah.
But out for brunch, and I said, babe, out for brunch. I think it's a book. I just feel like it's a book that I'm supposed to write. And I mean, literally 2019 going into 2020 on New Year's Eve, God woke me up and he gave me all the chapters. And I'm like, on my phone, on my notes, just like,
wow.
And it just comes so quick, and I'm like, stop it. Like, this is crazy.
She said all the chapters.
All the chapters. Literally, all the names of the chapters came to me in that moment. And I typed them up, and I knew them since then. And literally, like, bringing it to life, bringing all the pieces and the material to life for this book now is like, oh, it's so beautiful. Yeah. I'm excited about it.
I'm excited too. Yeah.
And so basically it's a book about your journey to purpose.
Okay.
Wear that dress and walk in your purpose fully.
I love that.
Yeah. I know for me, when I go to brunch, I like a pretty dress.
I mean,
I love dresses. Yeah. And so I felt like God was saying, the out for brunch is kind of the pathway also with your She Inspires brunches too. Like, She Inspires, that's what we do. We brunch together. And so out for brunch, what? Yeah. Like, and girl, so I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta go get the domain for out for brunch. I gotta do, like, I was like on it. I was not playing with things. I like, and now talking about it, and even like, working with my graphic designer on executing the pages and executing the cover, I'm like, oh, I could just step into it. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's fun for you too, because I mean, not only do you inspire, you are a creative. So being able to have those two things to join and come together,
yeah,
must be great.
I love beautiful homes, beautiful things, beautiful tablescapes, and I love to create around that. I feel like that's actually my calling, to be able to create a beautiful tablescape. Yeah. And allow people to be invited to sit around that beautiful tablescape that's like That's
Yeah.
a part of my calling. And I'm like, Lord, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because I can do that with She Inspires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also looking at your work, you don't just transform a space, you bring out the natural, the authentic, the realness of the space
Yes.
and what you do.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's ever told you that before, but just seeing that, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. It's kind of like, okay, how does she do that? And I'm like, I don't know. It just,
I just
I
do
just
it.
do it.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's fun, but also doing it in a way that allows me to know that whoever sits in that space, they can feel Jesus in that space.
Yeah.
Even if they don't necessarily know him
Yeah.
in a very intimate way,
Yeah.
maybe they can.
Yeah.
Does that like?
I love that. Maybe they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just through my design, just through me touching something.
Yeah.
I always say, and I always tell other women, I'm like, if you say this, you better be ready for it. But I'm like, Lord, make me a better vessel for you.
Oh.
So however that looks in my calling, however my hands need to touch it and feel it,
Yeah.
however my words need to speak over it,
Yeah.
then that's what I want to be doing every day.
Yeah.
And so
I love that you say that because I still just think it's beautiful. I can't wait for people to read more of your story in your book because I think they'll be able to put the two together
Yeah.
and just see how gracious and how much God has taken such a beautiful journey through life and made it something so sweet for you to experience. Tell me, if it's one thing that you would want to leave us with for our audience, what would you want to tell them and let them know?
a verse that kept coming to me, which is a part of She Inspires on my way here and this morning as I got dressed, was Psalms 46:5. God is within her, she will not fail. That's a verse that we take with She Inspires, and I always feel like, you know, if a woman can really read that, or a man can really read that verse and really like feel it here, because again, talking about failure and defeat and all of those things, if God is within you,
Yeah.
there's no failure if God is really within you, you know.
I love
If you really read, and of course reading a little bit more of the passage, but I feel like that those words just always like get me that little fuzzy feeling inside to know that God is always with me, you know, and he takes care of me even when I think I'm like a mess, and sometimes we are a mess.
We are all a mess.
And to be a mess sometimes is good, because then it brings out the bigger in you when you go through the mess. Then if we know that God is within us, then failure doesn't exist when God is within you. No matter what you think you're going through, that's so bad. And so, so I'll have to say that. Another thing is, we are, what is it? There's a passage or a quote that came to me years ago. We're not defined by our status, we're defined by our purpose.
I love that.
And I had to add that in because I feel like sometimes we get so caught up in the thing or the things, and we feel like that is the representation of us.
Yeah.
But in reality, if your purpose isn't wrapped up in it, it don't even matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're not defined by our status, we're defined by our purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's so much in that, because I think when people hear status, they hear, oh, that CEO, that person.
Yes.
But it means your state in that
Yes,
moment.
yes.
So even if you're going through a hard time right now, even if you're dealing with depression or anxiety, imposter syndrome, trauma, whatever it is, that bad break that you had, your status right now does not define you.
It doesn't define you.
So I love that so much.
Your
and that's,
situation does not define you. Your dark place does not define you. You know, and I think sometimes we forget that.
Yeah.
And especially if you're a business owner, you just kind of get caught up in all of the things, and it's like, it doesn't define you.
Yeah.
It doesn't. But your purpose does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
Living
all
out your
have one.
God-given purpose. We all have a purpose.
Yeah.
And that's why that passage, that quote came to me when years ago I was working on a podcast with a friend, and we were in the middle of an interview, and that came to me, and it's stuck with me like over the years. I think it's a big deal.
Yeah.
We do get caught up in the status, and we do get caught up in the moments and in the situations, and in reality those past things don't define us. That title doesn't necessarily define you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that. And I love that I met you. Like
Yes.
this, I feel like you're
Divine
an old friend. Oh my, a divine appointment. Yes.
Divine appointment.
Yes.
I love them. I do. You just never know.
Yeah. Who are you going to meet and where?
And it's so funny when you can recognize that divine appointment right then. Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I knew. I was like, oh, this one. Okay,
Like,
let's
wow,
do it.
This goodness going on this morning. Like being at the coffee shop for sure. Like even while Stacy was there, I'm like, I was meeting with another friend and Stacy walked in. I'm like, girl, I haven't seen you in years.
Oh my gosh.
Stacy used to come into my studio. That's how we met. And
Oh
then
my
you
goodness.
walking in, it's like, oh my gosh, a breath of fresh air walked through the door. So I love it. I love it.
Y'all hear that? I'm a breath of fresh air.
Yes.
Fresh air.
So thank you for recognizing like that it was a divine appointment, because I felt that it was in that moment.
Yeah.
Before I even said it.
Wow.
You said it.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Nycia.
Of course.
For
Thanks
coming on the
having me.
show. Love, you are the real deal.
Thank you. So are you.
This has been The Real Deal with Brie Clark. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and you can continue to follow the show on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Until next time, real conversations with real people.